We are here for the NLF Live today. Ebony and Michael, we're going to talk about how it is to appropriately dress for court.
So, how should you dress for court? First question, should it matter? You know, maybe it shouldn't. Maybe it shouldn't matter at all. What should matter is the facts, the evidence, the proof in the case. But in simple terms, it does matter. At least it matters to show that you show respect for the court. But it also matters because, let's just face it, once you're in court, once your case is being heard by a judge or a jury, you know, you're in a theater. This is a show you're putting on, and you have to act the part. And you have to, the lawyer wears a certain kind of clothing, the judge wears a certain kind of clothing, the bailiff wears a certain kind of clothing. Everybody has a part in this drama, and you need to act the part. I'm going to tell you a little story to illustrate this. Several years ago, I had a client who was accused of being involved in a conspiracy basically to transport a large amount of marijuana from Northern California to Southern California. The allegation, the story was that she and another girl, they were both about 20, 21, something like that, and her boyfriend, two of them, and I forget which configuration it was, two of them flew on an airplane, or strike that, one of them flew on an airplane and the other two drove the marijuana down south. They all met up in Orange County. They were staying at the boyfriend's grandmother's apartment in a senior living center. The boyfriend decided to go skateboarding one morning. His wallet fell out of his pocket, and in his wallet was a card from his probation officer. He was on probation. So the security people at the senior center found this card, found his wallet. They called the police. There's a knock at the door, and a whole lot of marijuana is found in this apartment because when you're on probation, they can search anywhere you're staying. This was around Christmas time, so all this marijuana was boxed up in these huge boxes wrapped up to look like Christmas presents with big ribbons on them. And they searched it and they found it. So they all got arrested. My client was a young woman. She was about 20. She was blonde. She lived up north in Northern California. The other girl was maybe about the same age, dark-haired. And the guy was just whoever he was, but he was locked up in custody. So because he was on probation, he got caught, so they put him in custody. So as happens in cases, these cases get put off. They get continued a lot. And every time, because it was a felony charge, these charges, mind you, now are all misdemeanors. But back in those days, those were all felonies. But marijuana charges have almost all been reduced to misdemeanor now. So every time we had a court hearing, she'd call me up a day or two before, and she'd say, are we going to the preliminary hearing? Are we going to be in front of the judge for real, or is this just another continuance? And if it was just another continuance, she'd show up in court, maybe wearing a pair of jeans and a sweater or something very, very casual, okay? She always tried to look nice because her boyfriend was being held in custody. She wanted to look nice for him, but they would bring him out in, you know, jail clothes, and I never even noticed what the other girl would wear. This happened 4, 5, 6 times, common thing. And then finally we were going to do the hearing. We were going to be in front of the judge. The judge was going to make some decisions about who was at least probably guilty and who wasn't, and whether the case was going to continue. So she calls me up. She says, we go on this next time? I say, yes. So we all get to the courtroom. There are 3 defendants, 3 lawyers, and 1 judge, and everybody else. So the one defendant, he's in custody, so he's wearing jail clothes. He's got a public defender, and he's a perfectly nice guy, the public defender, but the guy's in jail clothes. The other girl was there, and she was wearing, I mean, absolutely terrific clothing. She had a pair of tight, stylish jeans. She had on a sweater. It was maybe kind of a blood red sweater, and she had her hair was straight and long and dark and just looked you know, it was very nicely you know, had a brand new hairdo. It looked amazing. I mean, she was wearing high heels, very pointed high heels. I mean, she looked fantastic if she was going to a nightclub, but she was in a courtroom. Okay. So we're all sitting there, and then my client showed up a few minutes late. Now, mind you, my client shows up a few minutes late. She walks in. She's wearing a floral pastel dress, very not too catchy, just very, very light, very pastel colors, down to about there on her calf, okay, almost to her ankle. And up from her ankle was lace socks. The shoes she was wearing were patent leather shoes, not black. They were tan patent leather shoes with the strap across. My wife told me those are called Mary Janes. Okay. She had a floral or kind of a lace bodice or something, whatever word you would call it, right around this part of the top of her dress. She was wearing a sweater, like just a pink, light pink, very soft colored sweater with mother of pearl buttons. She had a little strap watch. She had almost no makeup on. I mean, just very little makeup, just enough so that this, she didn't shine in the light. She had almost, just understated jewelry. You could barely see it. Nothing, no rings, nothing, anything like that. She had a little clutch purse. She walked in, and mind you, this is a girl who, her other times in court, I mean, we're talking not quite exactly what the other girl was wearing, the jeans and the stilettos, but kind of close, right? But today she shows up again in this floral outfit, very pastel. She's got a little clutch purse. She sits down next to me, and she crosses her legs like this, and she puts her hands, and she just sat there as prim and as proper as you can imagine. So as this hearing is going on, this goes on for hours. 3 defendants, 3 lawyers. They did a whole motion on the search before this. And the judge is listening. Judge was a guy maybe in his mid to late 60s. He's listening, and he's, a lot to listen to. And I noticed him. His eyes would go around the room, and he'd see the guy in custody, and he really didn't even want to look at him. I mean, he would just see him, he'd look at him, eyes would keep moving. He'd look at the girl with the jeans and the sweater and the stilettos, and he'd look at her for a couple seconds, and then he'd look over at my client. And his whole mood, I mean, his whole body language and everything would just, just soften, and he would just gaze at her, and this would go on for several minutes. And then he'd start over again, and okay, the guy in custody over here, forget it. I don't want to look at you. Girl with the jeans, give her a couple seconds, and then back over to my client, just, watching and listening, and just, just really liked looking at her, and so this went on for like 3 hours. And now finally the decision comes, who's going to be held to answer and have to face the rest of the case. So the judge has heard all the evidence. He's heard the lawyers say what they have to say about it all. And so now he says, okay, all right, so here's my decision. He says, you, guy over here in custody, you're definitely guilty. I think you're guilty. You're going to have to go to trial. You're held to answer. Boom, you're out of here. See you in trial. Okay. Girl in the stilettos and the jeans. He didn't use those words, but that's how it went down. He said, this girl here, he says, well, yeah, you definitely, I think there's enough evidence against you. You're held to answer. See you later. Boom, you go. Okay. Then he comes over, he looks over at my client. Okay. And he says, now her, I just don't know. I just don't feel like there's enough real evidence against her. I feel like, I just don't feel like they have made their case against her. Now, in reality, there was less evidence against her, but I've done a lot of cases with similar amounts where a judge would have said there was enough. Okay. But he says, I don't think so, And he says, well, what do you think, counsel? He's asking me. So I kind of went through the same things that I'd said a moment ago. I said, yeah, Your Honor, I think you're right. There's really a decay. And I pointed out all the reasons why I didn't think the case should hold up. And he goes, you know what? You're right. I'm going to dismiss the charges against her. She's free to go. I mean, she jumped up out of that chair. She gave me a hug. She was so happy. She walked out of that courtroom. Now, here's the kicker. I'm going to ask you a question. If you had to think of one word to describe the image that she was trying to portray in that courtroom, what would it be?
Wholesome.
That's a good word. What do you want the judge to think you are? Starts with the letter I.
Innocent.
Innocent. I mean, she figured out to portray the picture of innocence. I mean, she looked with the sweater and the lace and the floral and everything. She had this thing figured out. I didn't even have to tell her. I mean, what do you want the judge to think you are? Innocent, okay? She was truly playing the part of the ingenue, the innocent young girl just trapped by these evil wrongdoers who had talked her into doing this thing or whatever she was trying to portray specifically, but truly the picture of innocence. And it worked, okay? Now, as I said, there was less evidence against her than there were against the others, but many cases a judge would have said there was enough. Now, was that the only reason that she was let go in the case? No, okay? Might she have been let go anyway had she not dressed that way? You know, chances are good she might have, yes. But why not, you know, psychologically and ideally make that point? Look, it's not for nothing that when you watch the Western movies, right, what color do the good guys, color hat do the good guys wear, right? They wear white hats. What color shirts do they wear? Blue, okay? What color hats do the bad guys wear? Black, always. Okay, now that's a whole nother cultural issue that maybe we should talk about some other time. That's maybe not so great. But the point is, the makers of the film don't want you to have to work so hard to figure out who the good guys are and the bad guys are, okay? We know who the bad guys are because they're the one in the black hat, okay? We know who the good guys are because they're the ones in the white hats. So that's how you should dress for court. Dress the part, okay? Dress the image that you want the judge to see about you. Whether it's you want to come across as intelligent, you want to come across as respectful, those things for sure, respectful for sure. I've seen people walk into courtrooms wearing military uniforms when they haven't been in the military for 15 years, but by their rules of the military, they're allowed to wear their uniform. Every head turns over to them. Everybody wants to respect the military, okay? And they should, okay? Those kinds of things work. Police officers are under strict instructions that they can only dress two ways for court. They can either wear their uniform that they would wear on patrol or in their other duties, or a suit and tie. There's no other option for them. You don't see them in jeans and a polo shirt. The one other option is that some of them are undercover, so they will wear their undercover outfit because theoretically they're not supposed to give up their identity. However, I can spot them a mile away. But that's a story for another day. We'll talk about how to spot undercover police officers another day. But anyways, that's how you dress for court. Dress the part. Dress for the image that you want to portray. And if you want to be innocent, dress like you're innocent. Thank you.